Chapter 1. Nia Walker kept her eyes fixed on the cracked linoleum floor of Lincoln High School's main hallway, one foot in front of the other. 17 steps to her locker. 43 more to first period English. She had counted them all, mapped every route that might minimize her exposure in the crowded corridors. Look who decided to show up today. The voice belonged to Amber Reeves, head cheerleader and self-appointed arbiter of the social hierarchy. Nia didn't look up, didn't break stride. Experience had taught her that acknowledgement only extended the torment. "Hello? Earth to Nia? Did all that fat clog your ears too?" Snickers rippled through the nearby students. Nia clutched her binder tighter against her chest, a shield of paper and plastic that offered no real protection. Her dark skin felt hot with shame, a familiar burning that started at her cheeks and spread down her neck. 17 steps, 14, 10. "Maybe she can't hear us over how loud her outfit is," another voice chimed in. Madison, Amber's ever-present shadow. "Where'd you get those pants, Nia?" "The circus tent store." 7 steps, 4, 2. Nia reached her locker and fumbled with the combination, her fingers betraying her with their trembling. 32-16-8. The numbers blurred as tears threatened, but she willed them back. Crying would only make things worse. "Hey, I'm talking to you!" A manicured hand slammed against the locker beside her head, the sound reverberating through the metal and into Nia's bones. She flinched but didn't turn. "What's your problem? Too good to talk to us now?" Nia finally looked up, meeting Amber's narrowed eyes. "I need to get to class," she said quietly, hating how small her voice sounded. "Oh, she speaks!" Amber's perfect features arranged themselves into mock surprise. "And here I thought maybe you were mute as well as—" "Ms. Reeves." Mr. Bennett's voice cut through the corridor like a knife. The English teacher stood a few feet away, his expression stern. "Don't you have somewhere to be?" Amber's smile shifted seamlessly from cruel to charming. "Just catching up with my friend Nia, Mr. B-Girl talk." "Fascinating. Perhaps you can continue this riveting conversation after you've both made it to your respective classes before the bell." Amber rolled her eyes but backed away, mouthing "later" to Nia with a smile that held nothing but malice. When she was gone, Mr. Bennett glanced at Nia, his expression softening slightly. "Everything all right, Ms. Walker?" Nia nodded, not trusting her voice. "You know, if there's ever anything—" "I'm fine," Nia managed, shutting her locker with more force than necessary. "Thank you." She escaped before he could say more, ducking into the nearest bathroom instead of continuing to English. The bell would ring in 2 minutes, but she needed a moment to compose herself. The bathroom was empty, thankfully. Nia leaned against the sink, avoiding her reflection in the spotted mirror. She knew what she would see: a 15-year-old girl with deep brown skin, eyes too large for her round face, and a body that refused to conform to the slender ideal that girls like Amber embodied effortlessly. From her binder, she extracted a sketchbook concealed between folders of homework and notes. It wasn't her main sketchbook. That one never left the safety of home. But a smaller one for moments like this, when the world became too much and only lines on paper could make sense of it. With practiced movements, she opened to a blank page and began to draw. No conscious thought guided her hand as colors bloomed across the paper, a cityscape unlike any that existed in their small Midwestern town. Buildings stretched toward an impossible sky, their forms organic rather than angular, flowing like liquid. People moved through the streets, their figures abstract but unmistakably joyful. The bell rang, startling her. Late again. Another detention slip to hide from her mother. Nia quickly tucked the sketchbook away, splashed cold water on her face, and hurried to class, keeping her eyes on the floor and her shoulders hunched, trying to make her body as small as possible in a world determined to remind her of its size. Mr. Bennet looked up as she slipped into the classroom, already launched into a discussion of The Great Gatsby. He didn't comment on her tardiness, just nodded slightly before continuing. Fitzgerald gives us a world of extreme wealth and privilege where characters like Tom and Daisy Buchanan move through life careless of the damage they leave in their wake. They are, as Nick describes them, people who mashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness. Nia slid into her seat at the back of the room, extracting her worn paperback copy of the novel. She had read ahead, finding in the character of Nick Carraway a familiar sense of being perpetually on the outside, observing a world that operated by rules she could never quite grasp. "Who in the novel," Mr. Bennet continued, pacing at the front of the room, "possesses true vision? Who actually sees beyond the glitter and glamour to the emptiness beneath?" Several hands shot up, the usual participants eager to demonstrate their insights. Nia kept her hand firmly in her lap, even though she had thoughts, so many thoughts, about the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg and the way Gatsby stared at the green light, about different kinds of blindness and the things people choose not to see. Instead, she opened her notebook and, while appearing to take notes, began to sketch in the margins. Small, intricate drawings that to a casual observer might look like elaborate doodles, but that contained entire worlds if one knew how to look. By the time the class ended, she had filled half a page with miniature scenes. A woman with wings made of books, children dancing through rain that fell upward instead of down, a house with windows that looked inward instead of out. Each tiny image was a fragment of the worlds that lived inside her head, safe from the Ambers and Madisons who populated her reality. As students gathered their things to leave, Mr. Bennet called out, "Ms. Walker, a moment, please." Nia froze, quickly closing her notebook. Had he noticed she wasn't paying attention? Would there be another note home? Another disappointed look from her mother who worked 2 jobs and didn't have time for parent-teacher conferences about her daughter's inattention? When the room had emptied, she approached his desk reluctantly. "Your essay on Fitzgerald's symbolism," Mr. Bennet said, extracting a paper from a stack. "It's exceptional." Nia blinked, uncertain how to respond. "Thank you," she managed finally. "You have a unique perspective. The way you connected the eyes of Dr. Eckelberg not just to God, but to the concept of witness. How society often sees without truly observing." He handed her the paper, an A marked in red at the top. "You should consider submitting something to the school literary magazine." Nia took the essay, surprise momentarily overriding her habitual caution. "I didn't know we had a literary magazine." "We're reviving it this year. Ms. Torres is the faculty advisor." He hesitated, then added more gently, "It might be good for you to connect with other students who share your interests." The brief flare of pride extinguished as quickly as it had ignited. Other students. The thought alone made her stomach tighten. "I'll think about it," she lied, already knowing she wouldn't. Mr. Bennet seemed to sense her retreat. "At least consider it. Sometimes the things we're most afraid to share are exactly what others need to see." Nia nodded non-committally and escaped into the hallway, now filled with students changing classes. She kept her head down, navigating the familiar path to her next class. The essay with its unexpected A clutched tightly in her hand like a talisman. No one saw her. No one ever really saw her, except when they decided to make her a target. And most days, that was exactly how she preferred it. Chapter 2. Home was a small apartment on the east side of town, where the buildings grew older and closer together, where chain stores gave way to family-owned businesses, with signs in multiple languages. Nia and her mother lived on the third floor of a converted Victorian house, their space consisting of a living room that doubled as Nia's bedroom, a kitchen barely large enough for a small table, and a single bedroom where her mother slept. It was past 6 when Nia unlocked the door, knowing her mother wouldn't be home for at least another hour. Thursdays meant the late shift at the hospital where Denise Walker worked as a nurse's aide, followed by a few hours at the convenience store to make ends meet. Single motherhood had not been Denise's plan, but when Nia's father decided fatherhood wasn't compatible with his music aspirations and disappeared before Nia's second birthday, Denise had adapted with the quiet resilience she tried to instill in her daughter. Nia dropped her backpack by the second-hand sofa that converted to her bed and went straight to the refrigerator, where a note was secured with a magnet shaped like a sunflower. Leftover chicken and rice in blue container. Remember to start laundry. Love you. Mom. She heated the food and ate standing at the counter, flipping through mail and mentally calculating how much of her weekend would be consumed by chores. When she finished, she washed her dish and retreated to the small desk in the corner of the living room, the one space that was entirely hers. From the bottom drawer, hidden beneath folders of school assignments and old report cards, she extracted her real sketchbook, a large, hard-bound volume with thick pages that could withstand the layers of paint, ink, and charcoal she applied to them. Unlike the small one she carried at school, this book contained work she poured herself into completely, without fear of judgment or ridicule. For the next 2 hours, Nia lost herself in color and form. The outside world with its taunts and exclusions faded away as she worked on a piece she had started the previous weekend, a panoramic cityscape unlike any real urban center. In Nia's city, buildings curved and swayed like dancers. Trees grew from rooftops and balconies. People of every shape, size, and color moved through streets where music was visible as tendrils of vibrant energy. She was so absorbed that she didn't hear the key in the lock. Only when her mother spoke did Nia snap back to reality. "That's beautiful, baby." Nia startled, instinctively moving to cover the page before recognizing her mother's voice. "I didn't hear you come in." Denise Walker set down her purse and kicked off her practical nursing shoes with a sigh of relief. Despite the exhaustion evident in the slump of her shoulders, her eyes were warm as she came to look over Nia's shoulder. "Is this for art class?" Nia shook her head. "Just for me." Her mother studied the drawing, her expression thoughtful. "You know, Ms. Rodriguez down in 1B has a niece who teaches at the community center. They offer art classes on Saturdays. I could ask about it if you want." The suggestion, though gently offered, sent a spike of anxiety through Nia. "I don't think so." "Why not?" "You've got real talent, Nia. Maybe it's time to do something with it." "I like doing this on my own." Nia closed the sketchbook, signaling the end of the conversation. "Did you eat? I can heat something up for you." Denise sighed but didn't push. "Already grabbed something at work. You start the laundry?" "I'm about to." Nia gathered the sketchbook and supplies, returning them to their drawer. "How was school today?" The question was part of their daily ritual, as was Nia's response. "Fine." Denise's eyes narrowed slightly, the maternal radar that sometimes pierced Nia's carefully constructed defenses activating. Just fine? Nia thought of Amber's taunts, of the essay with its unexpected A, of Mr. Bennett's suggestion about the literary magazine. None of it seemed worth mentioning. "Yeah, just regular school stuff." Her mother studied her for a moment longer, then nodded, too tired to probe further. "I'm going to shower and then crash early. These double shifts are killing me." "You should ask for better hours," Nia said, not for the first time. "When unicorns fly," Denise replied with a weary smile. "But thanks for the concern, baby. Things will ease up soon." It was another part of their ritual. This assurance that their circumstances were temporary, that something better waited just around the corner. Nia no longer believed it, but she nodded anyway, playing her role in the comforting fiction. Later, after the laundry was started and her mother had retreated to her bedroom, Nia converted the sofa to her bed and lay awake in the darkness, thinking about Mr. Bennet's words. Sometimes the things we're most afraid to share are exactly what others need to see. What would happen if people at school saw her drawings? Real laughter, probably. More ammunition for Amber and her crew. The thought alone made her curl into herself protectively. No, it was better to remain invisible. Better to wait out the remaining 3 years of high school and then escape. To art school, maybe. Or at least to a place where no one knew her as the fat black girl who never spoke up, who walked with her eyes on the ground, who occupied as little space as possible despite her size. In her imagination, she painted a different future over the dingy ceiling above her bed, one where her art hung in galleries, where people looked at her work and saw her, truly saw her, for the first time. It was a beautiful fantasy, as vivid and detailed as her drawings. But like her drawings, she kept it hidden, safe from a world that seemed determined to crush anything that dared to be different, anything that dared to dream in color. Chapter 3. The next morning dawned gray and drizzling, matching Nia's mood as she dressed for school. She chose her outfit with strategic care. Dark jeans, an oversized hoodie that concealed her body's curves, colors that wouldn't attract attention, her armor against the day ahead. "You sure you don't want me to drop you off?" her mother asked as Nia gathered her things. "It's pouring out there." "I'm fine. You'll be late for your shift." Nia avoided her mother's concerned gaze, focusing instead on arranging her textbooks in her backpack. "I got a call from school yesterday." Denise's voice was carefully neutral. "Something about detention for tardiness?" Nia froze. "It was just once. I got caught in the bathroom when the bell rang." "The school says it's happened 3 times this month." "It won't happen again." Nia zipped her backpack with finality, still not meeting her mother's eyes. Denise sighed. "Nia, look at me." Reluctantly, Nia raised her gaze. "Is something going on at school that I should know about?" For a moment, Nia considered telling her everything, about Amber and the others, about the daily gauntlet of whispers and laughter, about how she sometimes hid in bathroom stalls rather than face the cafeteria alone. But what could her mother do? Complain to the administration? That would only make things worse. And her mother had enough to worry about without adding Nia's social problems to the list. "No," she lied. "I've just been having trouble sleeping. Sometimes I'm slow getting to first period." Denise studied her daughter's face, clearly not entirely convinced. "You'd tell me if there was a problem, right?" "Of course." "Because you can talk to me about anything. You know that." "I know." Nia managed a smile that she hoped looked more genuine than it felt. "I should go. Love you." "Love you more," her mother replied automatically, their usual parting words. Outside, the rain had intensified, but Nia welcomed it. The hood of her sweatshirt pulled low, the steady drum of water on fabric, the general hunched posture of everyone hurrying through the downpour. It all provided additional camouflage, another layer of invisibility. Lincoln High loomed ahead, a blocky brick building from the 1960s that housed just under 1,000 students. In a larger school, perhaps Nia might have found a corner to exist unnoticed. But in Lincoln's confined ecosystem, everyone had their place, and hers had been determined long ago, at the bottom. She had almost reached the main entrance when she heard the honk of a car horn and the splash of tires through puddles pulling alongside her. Nia kept walking, assuming it was unrelated to her, until a voice called her name. "Nia! Hey, Nia Walker!" She turned reluctantly to see a battered blue Honda. The passenger window rolled down to reveal Elena Torres, a girl from her AP history class. Elena was one of those students who existed in the middle strata of high school hierarchy, not popular enough to run with Amber's crowd, but involved in enough activities to avoid outright rejection. They had been paired for a project last semester, and Elena had been polite, but not particularly friendly. "You're getting soaked," Elena said, gesturing to the empty passenger seat. "Want a ride to the door?" Nia hesitated, suspicion overriding her desire to escape the rain. Was this some elaborate setup? But no. Amber and her crowd wouldn't enlist Elena, who wasn't part of their inner circle. "It's fine," she said finally. "I'm almost there anyway." Elena shrugged. "Suit yourself. Hey, are you going to the literary magazine meeting after school? Mr. Bennett said you might be interested." Nia's stomach dropped. Mr. Bennett had already talked to someone about her? I don't think so. "You should. We need good writers, and Bennett said your essays are amazing." Elena glanced at the school entrance where students were streaming inside. "Look, I need to park. Think about it, okay? Room 143 at 3:30. Before Nia could formulate a response, Elena had rolled up her window and continued toward the student parking lot. Nia stood frozen for a moment, rain soaking through her hoodie as she processed this unexpected interaction. Someone had noticed her work. Someone had talked about her in a positive way. The concept was so foreign it took her a moment to recognize the warm feeling in her chest as a small spark of pride. The feeling didn't last long. By second period, she had overheard Madison telling someone that the hippo in the hoodie had apparently been standing in the rain like a complete psycho that morning. By lunch, the spark had been thoroughly extinguished, buried beneath the familiar weight of isolation as she ate her sandwich in the far corner of the cafeteria, a book propped open before her as a shield against the world. The final bell couldn't come soon enough. As students rushed for lockers and buses, Nia lingered at her desk in last period biology, waiting for the initial surge to pass. Mr. Okafor, organizing specimens for the next day's lab, looked up as she finally gathered her things. "No rush to get home today, Ms. Walker." Nia shrugged. "Just avoiding the crowd." He nodded understandingly. Mr. Okafor was new to Lincoln this year, a young teacher with an infectious enthusiasm for his subject that even the most science-averse students found hard to resist. Unlike many of the faculty who had been at Lincoln for decades, he seemed to actually see the dynamics at play in his classroom. "Smart strategy. Though I heard there's a literary magazine meeting starting soon. Might be worth checking out. Fewer crowds, more interesting conversations." Nia stared at him. "Did Mr. Bennett talk to all the teachers about me?" Mr. Okafor laughed. No. I'm faculty co-advisor with Ms. Torres. She mentioned Bennett had recommended a promising writer." He studied Nia's expression and added more gently, "No pressure, of course. Just thought I'd mention it." "Fair enough. But if you change your mind, room 143... He turned back to his specimens, adding casually, "Sometimes the best communities are the ones we never expected to find." Nia left without responding, hurrying through the now emptier hallways toward the exit. She had no intention of attending the meeting. What would she even do there? Sit in awkward silence while others confidently shared their work? No, thank you. She was almost to the main doors when she passed room 143 and found herself slowing despite her resolve. Through the rectangular window in the door, she could see a small group of students arranging desks in a circle. Elena was there, along with a boy Nia recognized from her math class, a girl with vivid purple hair she'd seen in the library sometimes, and a few others she knew only by sight. They were laughing about something, relaxed in each other's company in a way Nia couldn't imagine feeling with peers. As she watched, Ms. Torres entered, carrying a stack of papers and smiling at something one of the students said. It looked nice, normal. The kind of high school experience Nia had convinced herself she didn't want because she couldn't have it. She had just decided to continue on her way when Elena looked up and spotted her through the window. Her face lit up with recognition, and she waved enthusiastically, gesturing for Nia to come in. Trapped, Nia hesitated, her flight instinct warring with something deeper. A tiny, persistent voice whispering that maybe, just maybe, this could be different than she expected. Before she could resolve the internal conflict, the decision was made for her as Elena bounded to the door and opened it. "You came. I wasn't sure you would." "I was just passing by," Nia began, already formulating her excuse to leave. "Perfect timing, then. We're just getting started." Elena's smile was warm, without the calculation Nia had learned to look for in social interactions. "Come on, we don't bite. Well, except Zach when he gets hangry, but we brought snacks." The boy from math class, Zach apparently, called out, "That was one time and Marcus stole my lunch." A ripple of laughter went through the room, comfortable and inclusive rather than mocking. Ms. Torres looked up from organizing her papers. "Nia Walker, right? Mr. Bennett speaks highly of your writing. Please join us." Every instinct honed through years of self-preservation urged Nia to make an excuse and leave. But something, perhaps curiosity, perhaps the simple human need for connection, made her take a step forward instead of back. "I can stay for a little while," she said quietly. Elena beamed. "Awesome. Here, there's a seat next to Lily." The purple-haired girl, Lily, smiled and moved her backpack from an empty desk. As Nia tentatively took the seat, she noticed something that made her breath catch: a sketchbook on Lily's desk, open to a drawing of a fantastical landscape, not unlike the ones Nia created in her own private pages. "That's beautiful," Nia said before she could stop herself. Lily looked surprised, then pleased. "Thanks. It's for a graphic novel I'm working on. Sort of a dystopian meets fantasy thing." "You're an artist?" "Trying to be." Lily's smile was self-deprecating, but not self-conscious. "I mostly do the visual stuff for the magazine. Layouts, illustrations for the stories. You write question mark." "Sometimes," Nia admitted, the word feeling strange on her tongue, an acknowledgement of something she had never defined as part of her identity. Ms. Torres called the meeting to order then, explaining the structure of the revived literary magazine, submission guidelines, and the schedule for the first issue. As she spoke, Nia found herself relaxing incrementally, drawn into the discussion despite her reservations. These students weren't like Amber's crowd. They were earnest, enthusiastic about creating something together. When they spoke about poetry or short fiction or visual art, their faces animated with genuine passion. And most surprisingly, when Nia finally ventured a comment about thematic organization, they listened, not with tolerance or polite disinterest, but with actual attention. "That's a great point," Elena said, jotting a note. "We could organize by theme rather than medium for this first issue." "I like that," Zach agreed. "More cohesive." "Nia, would you be interested in being on the editorial committee?" Ms. Torres asked. "We need students with a good sense of how pieces work together." The question caught Nia off guard. I'm not sure I'd be good at that." "You already demonstrated a talent for it with your suggestion," Ms. Torres pointed out. "No pressure, but we'd love to have your perspective." Perspective. The word echoed in Nia's mind. When was the last time anyone had valued her perspective on anything? "I could try," she heard herself say, surprising no one more than herself. By the time the meeting ended an hour later, Nia had not only agreed to join the editorial committee, but had tentatively committed to submitting a personal essay for the first issue. As the group dispersed, Lily lingered beside her. "A few of us usually hit the coffee shop across the street after meetings. Want to come?" The invitation was so unexpected, that Nia almost looked behind her to see if Lily was actually addressing someone else. "I should probably get home," she said automatically, the self-protective reflex kicking in. "No problem. Maybe next time." Lily gathered her sketchbook, adding casually, "I'd love to see your artwork sometime, if you have any. I'm always looking for different styles to learn from." "How did you know I draw?" Lily grinned. "I've seen your notebook margins in biology. You try to hide it, but those little cityscapes are pretty distinctive." Nia felt her cheeks warm, not with shame this time, but with something closer to pleasure. "They're just doodles." "They're good doodles. Anyway, see you tomorrow?" "Yeah," Nia said, the word feeling like a commitment to something larger than just showing up to school. "See you tomorrow." On the walk home, the rain had stopped, and weak afternoon sunlight filtered through breaking clouds. Nia found herself noticing details she usually missed when her gaze was fixed on the ground. The way light caught in puddles, creating momentary rainbows. The vibrant green of leaves washed clean by rain. The patterns of wet footprints on the sidewalk. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she walked with her head up, seeing the world rather than hiding from it. Chapter 4. The change didn't happen overnight. Nia didn't suddenly transform from the girl who hid in bathroom stalls to a confident social butterfly. But in the weeks that followed that first literary magazine meeting, small shifts accumulated like brushstrokes on canvas, gradually creating something new. She began sitting with Lily and sometimes Zach during lunch, at a table in the corner of the cafeteria still removed from the social center, but no longer completely isolated. She spoke up occasionally in the weekly magazine meetings, each contribution met with respect rather than ridicule. She even showed Lily some of her public sketches, not the deeply personal ones from her home sketchbook, but the smaller works she felt safe sharing. "These are amazing," Lily had said, flipping through the pages with genuine admiration. "You have a really distinctive style. Like I can't even place what your influences are." "I don't really have influences," Nia admitted. "I don't study art formally or anything." "That's even more impressive. It's completely original." Lily pointed to a cityscape that spilled across 2 pages, buildings merging with natural elements in impossible but beautiful ways. "This reminds me a little of Gaudí, but more organic, you know." Nia didn't know, had never heard of Gaudí, but Lily's enthusiasm led to an impromptu art history lesson using Google Images on Lily's phone, which led to Nia discovering an entire world of artists whose work resonated with her own intuitive style. The literary magazine, meanwhile, was taking shape. Ms. Torres and Mr. Okafor had secured funding for a modest first print run, and submissions were being collected and evaluated. Nia found herself in the unexpected position of having opinions that mattered as part of the editorial committee. When she suggested that a sophomore's poem about identity would pair well with a senior's essay on cultural displacement, others nodded in agreement. It was a novel experience for Nia, being valued for her mind, for her artistic sensibility, rather than being dismissed for her appearance. Not that everything had changed. Amber and her crowd still existed, still occasionally directed barbs her way. But the sting had lessened somewhat, diluted by the knowledge that there were people at Lincoln who saw her differently. The real test came in early November, when Ms. Torres approached Nia after a meeting with an unexpected request. "We need more visual art for the magazine," she explained. "Lily mentioned you're quite talented. Would you consider submitting something?" Nia's immediate instinct was to refuse. Writing was one thing, words on a page attributable to her but not immediately revealing. Art was different. Her drawings were windows directly into her mind, her imagination, her soul. "I don't know," she hedged. "My stuff is kind of personal." Ms. Torres nodded understandingly. Art often is, but sometimes sharing the personal is how we connect most meaningfully with others. She studied Nia for a moment before adding, "Think about it?" No pressure, but the deadline is next Friday. For the next few days, Nia wrestled with the decision. She found herself flipping through her home sketchbook, evaluating her work with new eyes. Which pieces could she bear to share? Which felt too exposed, too vulnerable? "You've been quiet lately," her mother observed one evening as they washed dishes together. "Everything okay at school?" Nia considered how to explain the conflicting emotions churning inside her. "I joined the literary magazine," she said finally. "They want me to submit some of my artwork." Denise looked up from the pot she was scrubbing, surprise and pleasure animating her tired features. "Nia, that's wonderful. Which pieces are you thinking of?" "That's the problem. I don't know if I want to submit anything." "Why not?" "Your art is beautiful." Nia focused intently on drying a plate, avoiding her mother's gaze. "What if people don't like it? What if they laugh?" Denise set down her sponge and turned to face her daughter fully. "Baby, look at me." Reluctantly, Nia met her eyes. "There will always be people who don't understand what you have to offer. Always. That doesn't mean you should hide your light." She gently touched Nia's cheek, her palm warm and slightly damp from dishwater. "You think I don't know you've been having a hard time at that school? I'm your mother. I see you even when you try to hide." The simple statement, "I see you," brought unexpected tears to Nia's eyes. "If you're not ready to share your art, that's one thing," Denise continued. "But if you're holding back just because you're afraid of what others might say or think, that's something else entirely. Fear is a poor reason to silence yourself." That night, alone in the living room after her mother had gone to bed, Nia spread her sketches across the floor and really looked at them, not as their creator, but as a viewer might. The vibrant cities with their impossible architecture, the diverse figures moving through landscapes of music and color, the recurring motifs of flight and freedom, of boundaries dissolving. Her art wasn't just personal, it was a vision of a world different from the one she inhabited daily. A world where differences were celebrated rather than mocked, where beauty existed in unexpected forms, where connection replaced isolation. Maybe that was worth sharing, even if it opened her to potential ridicule. The next day, she brought a carefully selected drawing to school, sealed in a protective sleeve with the submission form Ms. Torres had provided. It was one of her favorite pieces, a panoramic cityscape where buildings grew like trees, intertwining with actual foliage, as figures of all shapes and sizes moved through streets that flowed like rivers. She waited until the end of the day to approach Ms. Torres's classroom, half hoping the teacher wouldn't be there so she could reconsider. But Ms. Torres was at her desk, grading papers, and looked up with a smile when Nia appeared in the doorway. "Nia, what can I do for you?" Wordlessly, Nia extended the sleeve containing her drawing. Ms. Torres accepted it, curiosity evident as she carefully removed the artwork. For a long, excruciating moment, she studied the drawing in silence. When she finally looked up, her expression made Nia's heart skip a beat. Not because of disappointment or confusion, but because of the unmistakable wonder in her eyes. "Nia," she said softly, "this is extraordinary." "It's okay if it doesn't fit what you're looking for," Nia said quickly, already reaching to take back the drawing. "No, you don't understand." Ms. Torres shook her head, still holding the artwork with reverent care. "This isn't just good enough for the literary magazine. This is gallery quality. The detail, the imagination, the technical skill." She looked at Nia with new eyes. "How long have you been creating art like this?" Nia shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise but unable to deny the warm glow it produced. "Always, I guess. Since I was little." "Have you ever had formal training?" No. And yet you've developed such a distinctive style. Ms. Torres seemed to be thinking aloud now. Have you considered pursuing art after high school? There are excellent programs, scholarships available for talented students.